Welcome to This Day in History, created by American Heritage Worldwide. A reminder that every day holds something new to learn. Did you know that when public tennis courts were closed to Black players, Althea Gibson memorized the location of the boundary lines on the court so she could practice in the dark? Learn how Althea Gibson became the first African-American to win the French Open in 1956, received her Wimbledon trophy from Queen Elizabeth, and was honored with a ticker tape parade in New York City. Discover that Althea Gibson won 11 Grand Slam championships during her career and became the first Black woman named Athlete of the Year by the Associated Press, and then retired at 31 years old.
Imagine trying to become a grandmaster in chess,
Okay.
right? But you aren't ever allowed to actually look at a chessboard during the day.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, like you aren't allowed to play in the main hall. You can't use the standard pieces, and you only get to practice when literally everyone else has gone home and they've shut off the lights.
That sounds completely impossible.
It sounds totally impossible. But
Right.
today, we're looking at a world-class champion who had to do exactly that, just, on a tennis court. So, welcome to this deep dive. Today, we are unpacking the life of Althea Gibson.
A true legend.
Absolutely. And I'm talking directly to you listening right now because we aren't just doing a standard sports history recap today.
Yeah.
We are unpacking a story that completely redefines grit, talent, and honestly, the fundamental nature of divine gifts.
Right. It really forces you to throw out the whole standard formula for how a champion is made. Because usually we think of athletic greatness as a product of perfect conditions, right? The right camps, the best coaches, pristine equipment.
Yeah, the country club pipeline.
Yep, exactly. But Althea's journey is the absolute definition of triumph over systemic impossibility. So we're going to explore how a unique God-given gift can actually be cultivated and strengthened when the world actively refuses to hand you the tools.
So to really understand how someone becomes one of the greatest athletes on the planet
Yeah.
in a sport they literally aren't allowed to play in public, we have to go back to the raw materials.
The very beginning.
Right. So Althea was born on August 25, 1927. She was the daughter of a sharecropper. She spent her earliest years living on a cotton farm near Silver, South Carolina.
Okay.
But the real catalyst, like where her story really begins to accelerate, happens when her family moves up to Harlem, New York.
And you really have to think about the sheer, the sensory and environmental shock of that transition.
Oh, absolutely.
You're taking a young kid from the rural open expanse of a southern cotton farm in the 1930s
Right.
and dropping her right into the dense, concrete, hyperkinetic grid of Harlem. I mean, it's a completely different rhythm of survival. And so it's really no surprise that she developed a reputation as this incredibly rebellious girl who was notoriously difficult to control.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that rebellious streak. It's kind of like an engine revving way past the red line.
That's a good way to put it.
Because if that engine isn't hooked up to a transmission, it just, shakes itself apart or blows a gasket.
Right, just raw friction.
Exactly. That explosive energy is purely destructive if it doesn't have a place to go. But instead of letting that happen, she found a neighborhood police athletic league.
Ah, yeah.
And this is where the community essentially becomes the transmission. They took all that raw, unfocused power and geared it down into forward momentum.
And a highly effective transmission, too. What really stands out to me there is the profound level of observation from the people around her.
What do you mean?
Well, her neighbors didn't just see a difficult kid acting out, They recognized a spark. They saw this unrefined, powerful gift. And the best part is, they didn't wait for her to polish it before they stepped in. They actually pooled their own resources together and paid for her junior membership at the Cosmopolitan Tennis Club.
Wow. Which, that one action changes everything.
Completely.
They basically built the dam to channel the river. They provided the infrastructure for her talent to actually exist.
Yeah.
And the results were immediate.
They really were.
Yeah. By 1939, she wins the New York City Women's Paddle Tennis Championship. And that victory becomes the launch pad. She just starts sweeping tournaments, eventually becoming the first Black woman to compete in the U.S. national indoor competition.
But, and this is the crux of it, that upward trajectory was always destined to collide with a very harsh reality.
Right, the segregation era.
Exactly. Her Her talent was growing exponentially, but the infrastructure available to her was fundamentally broken by American segregation.
Which brings us to the actual mechanics of how she had to practice. And this is the part that just blows my mind.
Yeah, it's staggering.
During segregation, public tennis courts were strictly closed to black people. These are municipal resources, funded by the public, explicitly denying her access.
Wow.
So Althea wasn't allowed to practice on any public court until after the court had closed for the day.
Right. She literally had to memorize where the boundary lines were so she could practice in the dark.
Which is, okay, let's just stop and think about the physical reality of that.
They're hard to even picture.
How does practicing a spatial sport in the dark actually shape an athlete's instincts?
Oh.
Think about the psychology of that. It's like a musician having to learn a complex symphony while completely blindfolded.
That's exactly what it is.
You physically have to feel the game rather than see it.
Yeah, and it fundamentally rewires how you interact with your environment. Tennis is a game of millimeters and microseconds, right?
Totally.
It is entirely about spatial awareness, the geometry of the court, the exact angle of the racket face. When you remove visual feedback, when you literally cannot see the lines on the court or the trajectory of the ball, your brain has to compensate.
Has to guess, basically.
Well, not even guess. Your proprioception, which is your body's unconscious awareness of its movement and position in space, it has to become hyper-attuned.
Ah, okay. So her muscle memory is being built on feeling the kinetic chain of her swing rather than visually confirming where the ball actually lands.
Precisely. She is internalizing the geometry of the court directly into her nervous system. But, there's a deeper psychological layer here, too.
Yeah.
Practicing in the pitch black with no audience and no guarantee you'll ever even be allowed to play in a real tournament, that is the ultimate crucible for human desire.
Wow. Yeah, it really is.
It proves that even under the most limiting, unjust circumstances imaginable, a true gift can be strengthened if the internal drive is just powerful enough. She was forced to master the invisible elements of the game.
And physically, she was built to maximize that invisible mastery. She was 5 feet 11 inches tall.
Great height for tennis.
Yeah. She had a quick step, a really long stride, and this incredibly powerful right-hand serve. She just moved easily about the court. When you pair that kind of natural physical leverage with a mind that has literally memorized the dimensions of the court in the dark, you are creating an absolute force of nature.
A force that eventually became totally impossible to contain within the shadows.
Right.
That hyper-attuned muscle memory didn't just make her a great local player. It created an undeniable physical reality that the white tennis establishment literally could no longer ignore. They had to let her in.
They didn't really have a choice.
Yeah.
And that door finally cracked open on August 22, 1950.
A historic day.
Huge. Althea Gibson becomes the first African-American to compete in a U.S. national championship tennis tournament at the iconic Forest Hills Tennis Stadium in New York.
And she didn't just walk through that door, she took the hinges off.
She really did.
Yeah, by 1956, she became the first African-American to win the French Open.
And it just keeps going. Then she goes on to win the Wimbledon doubles. And get this, she personally receives her trophy from Queen Elizabeth.
Just incredible.
She becomes the first black woman to be named Athlete of the Year by the Associated Press. She is inducted into both the International Women's Sports Hall of Fame and the International Tennis Hall of Fame. And she's listed among Sports Illustrated's top 100 greatest female athletes.
It is the absolute pinnacle of global athletic achievement.
Yeah.
And when she returned to New York City, she was honored with a massive ticker tape parade, which, by the way, made her only the second black U.S. athlete to ever receive that specific honor right after Jesse Owens.
Right. And this is where the sheer cognitive dissonance of the era just hits you like a truck.
Oh, man, yeah.
Imagine the cognitive whiplash of this. You literally receive a trophy from the Queen of England. You have a ticker tape parade in New York City with confetti raining down on you, but you can't book a hotel room.
It's sickening.
Despite all of these monumental feats, she still wasn't allowed to stay in hotels with white athletes. She couldn't even get a reservation for a luncheon that was being held in her own honor.
It is an agonizing, violent juxtaposition. And, it mirrors the exact same type of racial discrimination experienced by baseball great Jackie Robinson.
Right.
Segregation didn't just limit professional opportunities. It imposed a relentless, daily psychological indignity on these pioneers.
And I genuinely want to understand the mental fortitude required to navigate that duality. What happens to a human being when you are showered in confetti at 2 in the afternoon and then denied a basic bed to sleep in at 8 o'clock that night.
It demands a level of compartmentalization that is just completely exhausting. Physiologically, think about the whiplash you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Standing on a court at Wimbledon, receiving adoration from royalty, your brain is flooded with dopamine and adrenaline. You are at the absolute apex of human achievement. Then, hours later, you walk into a hotel lobby and are treated as subhuman. That triggers a massive cortisol spike, the stress hormone. Your nervous system is constantly swinging between the extreme highs of victory and the degrading lows of systemic racism.
So you essentially have to, sever your emotional reactions just to survive the day. On the court, you have to maintain the absolute, unshakable confidence of a champion. Off the court, you are navigating a literal minefield of humiliation.
And you cannot let the anger from the hotel lobby bleed into your swing on the court.
Because it'll ruin your game.
Exactly. Tennis requires absolute mental clarity. You are carrying the weight of two entirely different worlds, constantly masking the trauma of one so you can succeed in the other.
Living in that state of constant psychological hypervigilance, it has to be completely unsustainable.
It is.
Which perfectly explains what happens next. The sheer mental exhaustion of dealing with that cognitive whiplash naturally leads to how she eventually viewed her role in the sport. And ultimately why she walked away.
Because she wasn't just playing tennis anymore. She was bearing the crushing burden of representation.
Right.
When you are the first in any highly visible arena, your body and your actions cease to be entirely your own. You become a proxy for millions of people. Yeah. You're carrying the hopes, the anger, the frustrations, and the desperate expectations of an entire marginalized community every single time you step up to serve.
But there's this quote from her in 1957 that just stopped me in my tracks. She basically announced that she was done carrying the weight of the world.
It's a powerful quote.
It really is. She said, "I tried to feel responsible to Negroes, but that was a burden on my shoulders. Now I'm playing tennis to please me, not them."
And to fully grasp the magnitude of that statement, you really have to place it in its historical context, right?
This is 1957.
Exactly, 1957. The American Civil Rights Movement is boiling over. Rosa Parks and the Montgomery bus boycott were just a couple of years prior. For a black woman in the 1950s, standing on the global stage, to publicly declare that her primary obligation was to her own joy and fulfillment, that is an incredibly radical, earth-shattering act of self-preservation.
It's like she'd been carrying an entire community inside her tennis bag for her whole career.
Wow, yeah.
Every swing was weighed down by the need to prove that she, and by extension all black Americans, belonged on that court. So claiming the right to play just for herself seems like, in its own way, the ultimate form of liberation for her. She is finally just Althea.
She was actively separating her God-given gift from the massive societal expectations placed upon it. She recognized that her talent was, first and foremost, hers to wield. It wasn't a tool for political statement unless she wanted it to be.
And what she did with that liberation is so fascinating. In late 1958, at just 31 years old, she retired from tennis.
31.
31. By today's standards, or really any standard, that is incredibly early for a champion to step away. But she walked away with a final record of 56 national and international singles and doubles titles, including 11 Grand Slam championships.
Unbelievable stacks.
And she later passed away on September 28, 2003, in East Orange, New Jersey, at the age of 76. But stepping away at 31 at the absolute height of her power.
It is the ultimate power move. She had nothing left to prove to the tennis establishment, to the press, to her community, or to herself. She had fully mastered the game that had once locked her out in the dark. She dictated her own exit.
So if you pull back from the timeline of her life, Althea stepping away as the master of her own talent provides the perfect lens for us to look at a much bigger truth. Her story of cultivating a unique talent despite severe obstacles brings us to a fundamental factual reality about where human talents actually come from and how they operate.
Right. Her life serves as tangible, empirical proof that each of us has been given unique talents. The grit and the mechanics are important, but the origin of the gift itself is a foundational truth we have to acknowledge.
It actually made me completely rethink how I look at my own life.
How so?
Well, it is so easy to look at a 5'11" champion with an unstoppable serve and think, well, I didn't get a grand world-shaking gift like that.
Well, sure. The comparison trap.
Exactly. But reading the specific revelation that the Lord revealed to the prophet Joseph Smith, it kind of forces you into a corner. You can't use the excuse that you're talentless anymore. The doctrine dictates this as a factual reality. Listen to this exact quote. It says, "For all have not every gift given unto them. For there are many gifts, and to every man is given a gift by the Spirit of God. To some is given one, and to some is given another, that all may be profited thereby."
To every man is given a gift. There are no exceptions in that phrasing.
None at all.
But the phrase that truly shifts the paradigm is at the end, that all may be profited thereby. It completely redefines why we have talents in the first place.
It's an ecosystem. The gifts aren't handed out so we can hoard them or just, build our own egos. They're distributed so that the entire community can profit.
Think about the mechanics of Althea's early life through their exact lens. Her neighbors profited from her gift by getting to witness this incredible raw energy and ultimately sharing in the joy of her historic victories.
Right.
But she profited from their generosity and their vision when they pooled their money to pay for her club membership. If they had ignored her, or if she had refused to put in the work on those dark courts, that entire ecosystem breaks down. Discovering and honing our gifts is a spiritual and communal responsibility.
Which means your specific gift, you listening to this right now, no matter how quiet or unrefined it seems right now, might be the exact thing your community desperately needs.
Absolutely.
And your community might be the exact transmission needed to channel your raw potential into something powerful. So are you assuming your gifts are too weak just because they haven't been developed yet? The principle here is that even seemingly weak talents can be strengthened and developed, but only if your desire to achieve is strong enough to put in the work.
And we have to remember that Althea's neighbors didn't wait for her to be a polished, well-behaved Grand Slam champion to invest in her.
No, they didn't.
They invested in a messy, rebellious kid. We have to be willing to look at our own undeveloped talents and the messy, unrefined talents of the people around us with that same kind of grace and long-term vision.
It's a complete shift in perspective. We've journeyed from a young girl forced to memorize the boundaries of a tennis court in the pitch black of night simply because the daylight courts were closed to her.
Mm-hmm.
We've watched her physically internalize the geometry of a game that didn't want her, shatter international boundaries, stand before queens, and navigate the agonizing whiplash of ticker tape parades mixed with segregated hotels.
Incredible journey.
And she did it all propelled by a divine gift and an absolutely unbreakable desire to develop it.
Her story is a blueprint. It shows us the actual mechanics of how a divine gift matures in the real world. It requires community intervention, relentless unseen practice when no one is clapping for you, and eventually the profound courage to own that gift for yourself on your own terms.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to ask you two direct questions straight from the material we've been looking at today.
Let's hear them.
Do you know what your talents are? And how do you use them to help others?
Those are the questions that take everything we've just talked about and move it from a historical biography into an immediate personal call to action.
Exactly. Don't just let those questions wash over you as you listen. Take them with you today. Figure out what that gift is. And I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over.
Okay.
Think back to that image of young Althea standing on an empty asphalt court after the sun went down, feeling the grip of her racket in the dark. If you had to practice your greatest talent completely in the dark, with no applause, no audience, and no public recognition whatsoever, would your desire be strong enough to keep swinging?
That is the ultimate test of why we do what we do. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
Keep exploring, keep swinging in the dark if you have to, and keep developing those unique gifts. We'll get you on the next deep dive.
Thank you for joining us for this day in His story. May the lessons of yesterday inspire you to see God's hand today and to play your part in His story now. For more faith-based learning, visit ahsworldwide.org, the homeschool for faith and family.